Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for being here with us. Happy Tuesday. Hope you all are enjoying somewhat of a spring, even though it's still winter. My name is Lori Pritchard. I'm with KSL Television. I've been with KSL almost 20 years. Way before that, I worked for Accenture as a consultant. And before that, when I was in graduate school, I was telling these people, I wrote my master's thesis on change management. And we're going to talk a little bit about why it's not so much called change management anymore. But thank you so much for being here. I'm going to let my panel introduce themselves, tell us what company they're with, and a fun little anecdote about you.
Cool. My name is Steve Arntz. I'm the CEO of a company called Campfire. I also worked at Accenture.
Did you?
Early in my career. So, and something fun about me, I went to 14 schools growing up and have lived in 9 states, and I've been to 49 states. I'm going to Alaska this summer with my wife for our 20th wedding anniversary, and then we'll be at 50. So
Nice.
My name's Marcus Kazair. I work for bioMérieux. We are a medical diagnostics company headquartered in France with our North America headquarters here in Salt Lake City. You may be familiar with BioFire, which is the company that we acquired to kind of get a footprint here in Utah. An anecdote about me, I'm ridiculously frugal. I have a shirt that I've been wearing since I was 14 years old, and I will continue to wear it until it turns into threads.
Does it say frugal on it?
It doesn't, but we do call it shirt with a capital S.
Okay, all right.
It's a flannel, so my kids, in the fall, I'll throw it on and they're like, oh, here comes shirt.
Everyone knows what it is. Okay,
Yeah.
Good to know.
My name is Nate Beck. I work for Zions Bank Corporation. I am the Senior Vice President of Learning Experience and Design. Most people probably around here know Zions Bank Corporation, but it's an organization, a bank that's located on the western side of the United States. We've got several banks in several locations. Little bit about myself, sticking with the idea of change that we're going to be talking with. I am definitely a change agent. I love running towards change instead of hiding from it. And I think my team probably sometimes questions if I run too much. But my mindset is really you can either run towards and help make a change and make that change better for everybody around you, or you can let change hit you in the face, and the only thing you can do at that point is complain with everybody else at the water cooler. So that's a little bit about me.
Both good. My name's Amanda Harper. I happily and with gratitude lead the learning experience and performance team for a company called Square. And I'm a new mom. I live here in Utah with my son and husband. Both of them would attest that I am not a highly adaptable human. And so when we were talking about change today, I really been reflecting about my personal relationship and practice with change and how that, even in small moments in my personal and professional life, really helps me prepare for the big moments with my team when I need to show up as the leader I aspire to be, but also the leader they deserve in great moments of change.
Well, let's start off talking about HR and its influence on change, and particularly business strategy. How can we better make that transition for employees, especially if the strategy really is focused, maybe not so much on radical change, but change that could shake some of the employees in the company? Let me just start with you.
So HR, I think one of the most significant opportunities that they have, the levers that they have, is to help and support the frontline and middle managers. And it's incredibly challenging at that front line because oftentimes you're not responsible for the change. You didn't have any say in it at all. It's 3 layers up, it's 4 layers up, it's 5 layers up. If you're at Accenture, it's 17 layers up. 450,000 employees, and so what do I do? And so HR has an immense responsibility to be able to enable and empower those managers. And most of the time, the resources and tools that we have aren't scalable and effective in being able to provide them that frontline support. And so as an organization, I think reiterating the company's mission, its purpose, its vision and values, and being able to give everyone a foundation that they can be grounded on That's another thing that they can do. But providing that frontline manager support, I think, is one of the most significant responsibilities that HR has in managing and enabling change.
Go ahead.
Well, just to add on to that, I completely agree, but I also would say HR is a great advocate for the frontline to the C-suite. And, as HR individuals, you know what's happening on the front line and you have access to more senior business leaders, so you can help communicate the reality back up the ladder.
Amanda, you talked a little bit about the core values and how whatever change happens, if you maintain the emphasis on a company's core values, then employees can navigate along with the transition.
Yeah, I think this is something I've heard my peers talk about too, but talking to my team about what's not changing in those times of great change has been really helpful. Some of us have been through reorganizations in the last year, we've lost team members, and so I think those things that go on, no matter who's steering or who's on the boat, really matter, and we can anchor to those to say, here's the stuff that stays the same.
I think people can recognize change sometimes is scary. And so, Nate, you and I were talking about this transition from change management, so to speak, to transition management because it sounds less intimidating.
Yeah. I'm glad they brought up transition management because change really is about the event, right? It's going to happen. You have a set of steps, and when you flip that switch, change happens. But people are not the same way. There's no magical switch that you can switch and somebody suddenly is okay with what's happening. And so that transition management really is all about the ebbs and flows that go along with the feelings that people have and help understanding that there is a moment of loss and individuals need to mourn that loss before you can move on to accepting the new beginning. And we can help people really make that fluid motion by communicating early and often. Even after the change has happened, you got to continue having those conversations and doing so with sincerity and with empathy, and letting them know it's okay to have moments of grief, and redirecting it to here's what the change is going to do for you. Give them a positive outlook.
And it's not necessarily people per se, but skill or processes within the business. Steve, you talked a little bit about this too, grief and how you do need to let people literally grieve, but also find the people who are going to be those agents of change. And how do you identify those people?
One of the things is there's three basic ways that I've learned that people operate within a change environment. One is I'm results focused and I just want to go. Like, give me the plan and let's freaking go. So results oriented people. Then you've got relationship oriented people who are like, let me know that I'm safe, that the people around me are safe, that we're all safe, we're together in this. And then there's process oriented people who are like, give me the step-by-step plan through the whole thing. And identifying those people who are results focused maybe as a leader could be very helpful to you in sort of activating and getting things moving. But then making sure you take care of those who might need to grieve and mourn the loss of, and they might need to mourn the loss of actual people leaving the organization, because so much change these days involves that as well, reduction in headcount and that sort of thing. And so you need to give them time to talk about that and to feel and all of those sorts of things. And then the process folks, like helping them to see every step of the way. And so there's just these different periods and paces of change that can exist depending on the types of individuals that you're working with. And because change is such a collective impact thing, it can be really hard to zoom in on each of the individuals and understand like which of the agents of change need to be doing which things. So there are some people you'll identify. Would you just support everyone around you? Your relationship's focused. There's some people who need you. Can you help? And then the results focus, like, can you just start to get shit done? We got to get shit done. So let's do that, right? So those are some of my thoughts on that.
Nate.
So I think what I hear you saying is that, as if you are somebody that's looking at a change within your organization, you need to be able to approach people and use them to their strengths to help. You're not alone in this, and you shouldn't be doing this alone. So look for those that are going to help guide this. Look for those that can be change agents and utilize the resources around you.
It's interesting because I want to piggyback off something you said, the complaints at the water cooler. So how do you redirect people who are complaint oriented? And I'd like to get an answer from each of you on that. Amanda, I'll start with you.
Oh, I think it can be challenging, but someone once told me that the conversation between someone that's solutions focused and someone that's complaining should be really short. It should be something where you help to guide them toward a solution, or the conversation should end. And I think as a leader, we should model that solutions focused perspective. But I also think understanding where people are coming from is important too. So I don't think you can help to guide someone unless you understand why they are, where they are in that transition between in change.
Nate.
I have a sign on my desk that has Marcus's telephone number, and I just, no, I'm just kidding. I think it's okay that people complain, and I don't know if everybody understands that. So it's most important that you understand what they're saying and that you can empathize with that first. Let them know, this is a new system, and you've been used to this system for 10 years. I get it. I'm switching to a new system too. And then redirect that, bring them to the positive thing that's happening and show confidence in them. I know this is a new system, but I am completely confident in your ability to do new things and do them well. And I'm sure in the next few weeks, you're going to be helping other people do this too. And that helps motivate them to get past the water cooler complaints to maybe the water cooler in support.
Because it muddies the water to have people complaining. Marcus.
I got a rule: you complain up, you don't complain down. So if you do have a complaint, you're taking it to your boss, and you're coming with solutions as well, or you're just letting them know you're there to vent. And with my team members, with our organization, we encourage a robust argument and dissent and sharing of concerns and grievances until a decision is made, and then we do our grieving and we move on. I would say that, when it comes to managing those complaints, acknowledge them, but also we're not going to stay there.
A couple things. First, I think we need to be honest, really, really authentic and honest with our messages. So for example, Nate was talking about a systems change. We come in and we say, we're going to change this system. And we say, we're doing it because it's a better system. If we're really doing it because we're trying to save money and consolidate our systems into one system, we should not tell everybody it's a better system. If the system's going to be harder to use, it's a pain in the ass, like all of these things that we're doing it for actually have nothing to do with it being a better system, then let's just say the true thing. So if people are complaining like this system is harder to use, you're right, it's harder to use. And if they keep complaining about that, Marcus shared something really, really powerful. HR needs to be able to manage up to the CEO and say, listen, executives, this message is not landing. It is not resonating. You've asked us to consolidate systems, to save half a $500,000 on this thing. It's a worse system. You need to just tell everybody, listen, in order to fulfill our purpose as an organization, we need to save $500,000 on this system. It sucks. It's a piece of shit.
But can you say that? I mean, can you really say that to
We
your
have
employees?
to be able to do that. And that's the HR job, to reach up to the CEO suite and say, listen, tell an authentic message. Like, this change is happening because, so.
And I think you need clear feedback loops to distinguish what is a divergent perspective versus a complaint, because those are different things. And we need to be able to collect that dissent, and that dissent's important, to distinguish from something that's just a complaint and isn't moving us forward.
Marcus, you did bring that up too, the HR's role in getting that seat at the table, especially with the C-suite, because they do need to listen, but don't always do that. How do you fight for that seat?
I would wager everyone in this room who has business partner in their title wrestles with that on the regular. How do you get seen as a partner, as a value add, and not as somebody who processes status changes for the managers or helps get requisitions out? It comes through, well, So it's not something that happens quickly, right? You become a value-added partner by bringing data and strategy and plans to the executives that help them meet their priorities. When you're so closely aligned to what they're trying to achieve, they see you as an asset, you have a much better chance of having a seat at the table and having your opinion respected. If you come with data versus with anecdotes, it goes a lot further. If you're able to attach an ROI to it, even better, to show them what they're going to potentially gain if they or lose based upon the friction they're going to create with the change they're proposing.
I just add that the conversation, the hard truth conversation in this case is also very valuable, right? If you can come and be confident in giving hard truth to your C-suite, they're going to appreciate that more often than not than trying to tell them what you think they want to hear. So don't stop with just telling your employees the hard truths. Tell the C-suite as well.
I was going to say, I think the question of whether that seat exists has been largely answered in the last few years. I think that has been a question in the past, is HR at the table? I saw a study last year on our HR operating model in the US, and 86% of companies in the US reported that senior HR executives report directly into the CEO. So we're there in most cases. So it's up to us to use our voice at that table. If we're in that seat, if you're not in that seat yet, I think data literacy, like you said, is super important in building that seat, but really making good use of your voice if you do have the ear of your C-suite.
There's a big difference between a symbolic seat and
an actual seat. Yeah,
that's true.
And how do you get that actual seat? I mean, is it solely data-driven?
I think it starts with understanding, feeling, knowing, believing, being aligned with the executive priorities. Like, get to a place where you believe that their vision for what will make that company successful, that is real, that it is true. It's not about fighting for something that they don't want. Mm-hmm. It's about fighting with them for what they do want.
Marcus?
Yeah, and just bringing valuable solutions. When you're that bridge, when you know the front line, and you're able to bring that perspective honestly and authentically, that helps build your credibility. When you're there, however you put it, the chair that's, would you say ceremonial?
Symbolic.
Symbolic, yeah. Whether it's a symbolic or an actual voice that's welcome at the table.
Nate, do you have any thoughts on fighting for that seat?
Yeah, just, you're a force. Be that force, right? Don't let anybody tell you that HR can't be here. Prove that you have a reason and a purpose, and you do that through data. You do that by doing the things that you do best, influencing people and helping them be successful. And just remember, you are a force that should be, not just symbolically, but realistically on that seat and that table.
We've talked a little bit about the top-down change, but what about change from the ground up? And you are representing employee-led change. How do you bring that to the table and actually fight for it if it maybe not necessarily diverges entirely, but somewhat from what the executives may vision?
Can I take that one?
Absolutely.
So the executive's vision. Perhaps we can all identify with those very expensive black box meetings that the senior leaders go into for months at a time. And then they emerge with their change strategy or their change mission, vision statement or whatever it may be. And because they've invested so much in it, any critique or criticism or recommendations, I used to work in instructional design, and we had an expression that sometimes we have to tell people their baby's ugly. And you're telling them that their change baby is ugly. And they're so in love with it because they put so much work into it, they're not open. They're psychologically closed off to any sort of recommendation. So I'd recommend as HR leaders that we work to prevent that we encourage our senior leaders to take an iterative approach to setting their change strategies. Stress test it with team members, run it by them, get their feedback. Perhaps instead of having them come out with a firmly established change plan, they come out with a vision. And we help facilitate conversations with team members about what resonates with you in this vision. We're not going to worry about next steps. We're just going to worry about where we want to go. And facilitating conversations that way so that the front line has a chance to influence what that final change strategy will be.
If I could add, don't wait for the C-suite to come to you and say, this is what we want from HR. If there's something, you need to, again, advocate for HR and go to them. I want to be a part of this. I want my department to be a part of this change or this thing that you're doing at the very beginning. If you can get them to understand that HR, learning and development, has a unique perspective because you are a part of every change that happens in the organization. And once they can realize that and that perspective comes from witnessing every change, you're more likely, again, as you approach them to be involved. And then you can advocate for the frontline employees. Tell them this is what they're seeing. You love this new system. It sucks. Here's what's happening to our people. Next time, involve us. And we could tell you that when you're picking a new system.
I think back to those feedback loops, if you have feedback loops in place, if it's an engagement survey, if it's an experience survey after we launch the new system, knowing how to correlate that data to what matters to our executive suite is really important. If in your talent philosophy, those numbers on their face aren't inherently valuable. So engagement data is as valuable as your C-suite thinks that it is. And so being able to draw correlations between things that do affect what matters to them, I think can be really important in building, to go back to the seat, building that seat into something that really holds weight so that you're in those rooms when these discussions are taking place. So making good use of that feedback we get from our front line and turning it into something that shows impact to what our business objectives are.
So you're talking about emergent change, like bottoms up change, right? Like how do you create an environment where bottoms up change happens? A lot of our top down changes happen because not enough bottom up change was allowed inside of an organization. So one of the biggest levers that we have in HR is our performance management process. And what are we rewarding in terms of behaviors? Are we rewarding creativity and innovation? Are we rewarding solutions from the bottom? Or are we punishing mistakes? We can spend a lot of time and effort and money on preventing mistakes, and we can spend a lot of time and effort and money on helping create an environment where mistakes we can fix them quickly, we can respond to them quickly, and that creates safety. And if you're launching rockets to Mars, maybe you don't want so much bottoms-up emergent change. If you are, building a leadership development platform like I am, we have an environment at Campfire that's incredibly tolerant to people's ideas and mistakes and challenges, and people can mess up like crazy. And so that allows for a very emergent culture of change. But your performance management process sits at the center of all of it, and we take that for granted. We teach some behaviors, and then we reward and incentivize completely different behaviors. And it creates a system that has no safety in it.
Good observation.
Let's talk a little bit, and some of you clearly work for very different companies, but the way you all express HR, they're engaged at every level of the organization. Some organizations, to its employees, HR is scary because that means you've done something wrong. How do you work around that view that HR is calling, I'm in trouble, or I'm gonna get fired?
I guess I'll go. My answer would be one relationship at a time. My answer would be get out from behind your desk and spend an hour in production, on the floor. Wherever it is that the work's happening, get out there and build relationships. Help individuals know that you're actually there as an advocate. Yes, you have to protect the company. That's part of your job description. But you're also there to help the human element of the job be better, to help people thrive and have joy at work and be able to move around and promote to things that are interested with them. But I don't think that's something that scales. I think you do that one relationship at a time.
And I'd say we've talked a lot about having a seat at the C-suite table, but we also have to have a seat at the everybody else table, right? And that comes with, like you said, building those relationships. That comes with having hard conversations that supports individuals, that aligns them to the strategic direction of an organization, and then advocating for them. But it takes a lot of work to have a seat at both tables.
I don't think you, as HR, you can let leaders hide behind you. Like, if a manager knew that a person was going to get fired for a while, and then HR is the one calling, and you're afraid of HR, like that manager, you let that manager hide behind you. Don't let leaders hide behind HR. Like, let them know, I'm going to call you out for your bullshit. Like, you needed to do something sooner. You should have clarified and communicated expectations, and you're not hiding behind me. Like, do not let them hide behind you.
I think that's so important with change, that as somewhat in the learning space, we are on the front lines of change, and we expect people to be really good at it, and we're communicating it, but often we need leaders to champion those changes too. So if it's the first time that they're hearing about a change from us, if it's the only time they're hearing about a change from us, that's a problem. And so making sure we're building those relationships and trust with our leaders and building some accountability with our leaders in our organizations, I think is really critical to being positioned in a place that fosters trust as HR or a center of excellence.
We talked a little bit right now, the big debate going on is either going back to the office or working from home. And I can imagine for a lot of employees out there, whether here in Salt Lake City or around the country, they're very married to the fact that they would like to work from home. And maybe not 5 days a week, but at least a nice balance of going into the office and working from home. How do you navigate that? Because the people who are making those decisions are a pay grade above you.
I think if my message of like authenticity between mind, body, heart in your message is important, it's as important in this topic as any other topic. Like, if you're making return to office decisions based on a real estate contract, like that's why we're doing it. If you're then pretending that it's for productivity, like, people are not going to buy it. They're not going to believe it. And so it's just, you need to have an authentic message. Like, there are companies that are like, we're fully in person, and there are people who crave that so much, and they want to work for those companies. So just be authentic with your message. Like, tell the truth. Like, that's what I have to say about it.
Well, because this is really personal to people.
Yeah.
I mean, they're losing a good piece of who they are by leaving their home. I mean, they want to work from home. Now, some people don't, but we've heard the argument time and again. People just don't want to work in the office 5 days a week. So how do you navigate that change?
Quick anecdote. Our operations team did a great job owning return to office mandates. They didn't try to hide behind HR, and we in HR very much appreciated that. That they made sure that, hey, this is our decision. This is not an HR decision. But on how to navigate it, yeah, I don't want to sound too insensitive. It's something I consistently receive on my performance evaluations, that I could be a bit more sensitive. But we call it work for a reason. And just because it can be done at home doesn't mean it is going to be done at home. And there are other objectives, other people, other personalities that are factored into this equation. And, in an effort to meet the needs of all of those individuals as well as the needs of the organization, things are going to have to change.
A quick anecdote on my part. I have never worked from home. I, all through COVID, went into the office 5 days a week. And there were a group of us that did that while everyone else got to work from home. And it was frustrating at times when you needed a decision to be made and they weren't available to make it. And the rest of us were all at work, doing what we were paid to be doing, but our jobs mandated that we needed to be in the office. So, that of course was understood. Nate?
Honestly, I feel like what has been said is what should be said. There's no there's not a good way to tell people they have to come work in the office. You just have to be honest about it. We're doing this as a company. We've agreed as a leadership team, and we're moving forward. The big thing is just remember that it is a loss for people. It's a change, whether it's that they're upset about gas, having to pay for gas, or whether it's upset that they like the comfort of their home. It doesn't matter. You have to be aware that they're going to have feelings, and they are valid feelings. So validate those feelings, let them know it's okay to have those feelings, and then redirect them to, this is the reality. Are you on the bus or you're not?
Square is a remote first company, and that is a fairly data-driven decision around, I think, productivity, but also talent, where we find our talent. Not all companies have taken those steps, and I think whatever your policy is, like any change, I think we can be a part of continuing to advocate for data-driven decisions. So if today you're in a position where everyone's returning to office and you think, based on what you know about your employee population, that's not a desired state, continue to advocate for that. Look for data-driven ways. If you're in recruiting, what would happen if you expanded your talent pool in a 75-mile radius? Would that help you in filling these roles? Could you make a case for that? And then now we can talk about hybrid from going in 5 days a week. So I think it's like any change, something we can continually be part of and advocating for based on what we hear from our teams. And then if it's not the change that you want to be communicating, or even that maybe you're behind, I just fiercely believe in disagree and then commit. So it's okay if we don't all agree. We're a team. We're moving forward in this way, and we can still continue to advocate for what data and facts tell us about what's right for our organization and our people.
We're up here, of course, talking about change, and I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk about technology and how it is impacting every single one of us and will continue to do so in the future. There's a new study that was published by Pew Research just today, and Americans are using AI at work, but they're skeptical about that technology on the job. Fewer than 1/3 said they're excited about it. Only 6% believe AI will lead to more job opportunities. How do we get a handle on AI? Steve? Because you got the handle on it.
I don't.
Of all of us sitting up here, I'm not allowed to, just full disclosure, at KSL, we are absolutely under no circumstances allowed to use AI at all. So,
some principles for me are that AI can't take judgment from us right now. It doesn't have strong judgment. It has good inputs, but we need to operate it. It does not operate us. And so if we're doing writing work, AI cannot be the judge of good writing. We must be the judge of good writing. And there's so many other elements where that needs to be true. And so for now, I think if we're not leveraging it in our organizations, we're definitely missing really, really big. But the key is that we know that it's an augment, not a replace. At least at the moment. It is going to be used irresponsibly to replace lots of jobs. And then 2 years down the road, a lot of people are going to be like, we should hire all those people back. But they're going to be at new places using AI in conjunction with instead of in replacement of. And so I think that's the biggest thing for me right now.
Mark, go ahead.
Sorry. I think there's a lot of great stuff happening every day. It's getting better every day. I would offer, if you're looking for ways to kind of train your focus around like this idea of augmentation or enablement rather than replacement in your organization, we've seen it be really effective at scale in organizations and things like automation and in places where use cases for large language models, so things like summarization and search. And I really believe HR is in a unique position to prepare our organizations to use AI in a way that enables our workforce rather than replaces it. So if you think about, some of you might be in skills-based organizations where you think already today about the skills that are required in any given role in your organization, but you're probably already thinking about what you need for the future. That's preparation for AI. Mapping those skills with tasks. AI automates with tasks, not skills. So again, this doesn't replace the skill itself, but a task is an observable output to your skill, right? How do you know someone demonstrates a skill? It's because they do a thing you can point to. So what are those tasks that map to the skills that are important in your organization? And that's where you can start looking to not replace someone, but to remove some kind of administrative burden from them that enables them in a way they weren't enabled before. And I'll just say from like a learning perspective, in a center of excellence like ours, we're very focused on large language models, particularly around how they service in knowledge. So like I mentioned, search and summarization has changed the way we think about embedded workflow learning. So if you can get knowledge into the hands of an employee anywhere, real time, when they need it, in a way we couldn't do before. But it requires your materials be ready for that. So that's the other thing I'd say. If you're thinking about prepping your organization to enable your workforce rather than replace it, make sure your materials are optimized for AI functionality. And I think even more than that, how you maintain those materials and govern those materials really matters.
Nate.
So I like to talk about the benefits of what it can do, as opposed to, some people talk about the replacement factor, and we already talked about the enhancement. But with my team, for example, we've worked hard over the last year and a half to implement AI in some of our tools. And the conversation with my team wasn't, hey, we can use these tools so I can have two less of you. It's the reality is we have so much to do right now, and I want us to focus on the best things. But sometimes you still have to do the good things and the better things. And that's where AI comes in, right? Let's let AI do the good things and do the better things. So we focus your talents, your skills, your amazing abilities on just the best things. And that helps. As people look at it in a light like that, it's less scary than AI's coming to get you.
It is scary for a lot of people. It's definitely coming for me. Marcus, your thoughts?
Okay, so I'm going to do a little pivot here a little bit. So instead of thinking about how AI impacts your day-to-day, what opportunities does AI bring you in HR, right? I forgot the exact percentage, but I think it was about a third of the people aren't even interested in touching AI or something along.
A third say they're excited about it, so
Okay.
it's 70% who are not.
So we've got 70% of people ripe for some change management work, right? We can go work with them. We can help them navigate this change. Those who are using it, but they're using it wrong, right? We've got a learning and development opportunity there. Teach them the skills to use the tool properly. Maybe they are using it, but they're getting non-value add or less effective results. So they're having a bad experience. Well, we got employee experience work we can do there. So there's a lot we can contribute as an HR professional, as other groups are learning and utilizing these tools. And like you said, having the good resources for them plays a critical role in that. But I kind of pivoted away there. But
no,
I think there's plenty for us to do, not just help us, write our emails and generate e-learnings, but also to manage the relationship side and help our people navigate the changes that hits their world as well.
I just last offer here, if you don't have an AI ethics policy at your organization, spearheading that and partnering to build that, I think is really helpful in building trust in how kind of pulling back the curtain on how you as an organization agree that AI is going to be used in a way that is reflective of your values as an organization. You can include things like privacy and safety requirements in that policy, especially if open source is part of your plan. So I highly recommend that's something organizations put into place so that you can point to it and sort of remove some of the unknown as to how as a company we're going to use AI.
That's a really good point. You could probably have ChatGPT help you.
Yeah, maybe I can build this for you.
Just take what you want from that. Okay, so we're winding down with our time. So last question, and I'll ask this of each of you. If leaders in the room are currently struggling with their efforts to drive workplace change, what is the one thing that they can do tomorrow to help increase progress? Would you like to start?
You want me to start?
Sure.
I was working with an organization that's going through some immense change, and they have a tremendous purpose. It's an organization everyone in here would know, and they're doing some incredible work that is literally world-changing. And it's so shocking. I was in the home of one of the executives with 45 people on the team, and I had everyone orient around what is the purpose of this organization, what is the mission that it's on, and what do we see in this room that no one else seems to see. And they all wrote independently, and then I had them circle one thing that they thought stood out from their writing on those 3 topics, and then share around the room, and every one of the 40 people shared. And afterwards, they all felt completely capable of being able to execute the immense change that was being asked of them. And I think we really, really underestimate the value of a shared sense of purpose, and executives being able to really align around what our actual purpose is and help people to have that as a foundation for all of the changes that we're moving through. This is all worth it because we are changing the world in X, Y, and Z ways. I think that's the single highest leverage thing that you have as an organization to help affect change.
Marcus?
I already said it, but to repeat myself, just go spend time with the people. Unstructured time where you're building trust, you're having some vulnerability, and you're coming to understand what their reality looks like, and then taking that knowledge from those relationships and leveraging it to help the executives make better decisions and help make the working conditions better for the team members.
Great.
Yeah, so I don't know about you all. Whenever I leave the office, I do the dad pat where I'm like constantly, I got my keys, I got my wallet, I got my phone. I think sometimes if you're going in to have a conversation about change, do the same thing. Check yourself and ask yourself, where's my empathy? Do I have that? Do I have an understanding of what I'm going to be asking them to change? And do I believe in the things that I'm being asked to change? And if you don't have those 3 things in your pocket somewhere, you shouldn't be having the conversation. Wait until you do. Don't send that email, until you know you've got your pockets full of those 3 things.
The mom version is the purse rummage instead of the dad pad. I love what you all said. I think I'll try and add something maybe different. And we've talked a lot about change adoption, and sometimes I think getting change done where we need it most is hard. So something that seems really simple, but I think has made a difference for me and my team is refreshing a RACI. If you were going to go back and do one thing, clarifying responsibilities and accountability with your partners. Who are the real decision makers? Who just needs to be informed of things? Sometimes there's too many voices in the room, and sometimes the right one's not there. And I think that's something that's helped us move change along and influence change where we need it most. And it's a pretty simple exercise that sometimes we forget to refresh.
All right, thank you all. Thank you all so much. You've just been a great audience. I want to thank Steve, Marcus, Nate, Amanda, all for being here with us this afternoon to talk a little bit about this, because change is hard, doesn't have to be, but it's how you manage it, which makes it easier. So thank you. Thanks to all of you. Thank you.